Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, can we please start with roll call?
Yes. Aaron Angel. Here. Scott Conrad.
Here.
Thomas Davis.
Here.
Paige Lewis.
Here.
Sam Levy.
Here.
Thank you. Nicholas Novello.
Here.
And Council Liaison Sean McCoy is not here tonight.
It's just
Yeah, okay. It's a good call out. Yeah, thank you, Paige.
You what?
Well, you've got Sam's
the
picture.
view.
Oh, the
Like,
view.
go to the view. Yeah, and go to gallery.
Yeah, it's a little better.
Yeah, that makes it feel a little.
You got like those over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So first up on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Before we just approve the agenda, I just want to note for the new business section, there was an intent of moving into 20 capital improvement projects, but there were some more urgent updates and decisions that we need to make, and that's why the agenda got moved around the way it did. So with that caveat, does anyone have any amendments they'd like to make to the agenda? Okay, no discussions there. So if not, then all in favor of the, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
And we need a second?
One second.
And all in favor? And we have Sam, virtual vote. Yep, cool. Okay, awesome. Okay, moving on to approval of previous month's minutes. So for the previous month, there was one minor edit that we want to make about the attendees, specifically that Jeff was not present. Outside,
And Ben was.
and Ben was. Outside of that, does anyone have any modifications to the previous month's minutes that they'd like to flag?
I mean, there were several staff, but they were part of the presentation.
Sure.
So we don't really need to capture that.
Do we have that? Anyone have that list of all the staff?
Remember who was here last month?
Everyone. I mean, everyone.
Yeah, we'll add that to the list.
Okay.
Yeah, David can help us.
It was a lot of people.
Yeah, that was my only note about like the minutes is that it was way more stuff that was captured here. Not that I had it all.
Okay. You mean in terms of substance or
Well, in terms of like each of the
presentation?
presentations.
Anything specifically you'd like to call out?
No, I don't. I just like skimming through. I think it's a lot more.
Do we ever make presentation slides? Like, are they available with the minutes? When there's a
We've done that, or
presentation?
we can.
They were really good presentations.
Yeah,
Maybe we
it's a
could
good
just
point.
make a link to the presentation available.
That would be tutors.
Also, like, just to say thank you to all of you supervisors who enabled that to happen and gave them time to do that. And hopefully you all got paid and also if you all could pass thanks. Because that was my favorite meeting we've had so far. Like, as far as informed, just really knowing things that really felt good.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a alignment on that. Okay, with that being said, are there any... Yep, Sam? I've got a David raise hand too, I realize.
I'm going to have the same comment as David. I unfortunately really can't hear anything you guys are saying. David, are you hearing it all? Or is it really...
Yeah, I was going to say, whatever Nick is doing, I think however he's projecting, I can hear Nick okay, but anyone else, even Paige sitting closer, I cannot hear. So Nick's above the...
I will say I am intentionally speaking louder. I am trying to be
For
inclusive.
me, it's working. I don't know if it is for Sam, but I can hear him.
Yeah, I can hear Nick, but it's going to be hard to hear Jeff, for example, or anybody else. If it's too hard to do it remotely, I'll just drop out. You guys have quorum, but I feel like the room must be better equipped than what we're hearing right now, or else no one's ever done a virtual meeting in the room.
Nope, we have technical difficulties in this room constantly. We're working
Yeah, I could barely hear that.
I wonder if it's coming
It's
through.
coming from the
It's-
camera.
yeah, it's coming from
Is it coming from the camera? Not,
And so, yeah, so,
So either the last thing that we've done before that sometimes works is exiting and coming back in.
yeah, like get out of Zoom and come back. That's you.
We're gonna take a brief time out
Okay,
here.
so it's
just working
coming through
technical
the
issues.
camera mic and we need to try and get it off of that. So we're gonna go out,
And
come
we
back
can't do it
in.
this way?
So look
I
at
don't
the
know.
Or you
audio,
should-
the
you should be able to
microphone. Look at the
Yeah, in the
microphone.
Zoom meeting, you can swap to a different mic.
Look at the JLab.
This is the wrong mic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Click on
but
that.
the other one
Click
didn't
on
work.
that.
It didn't work last time though.
We just tried it.
Does
Can
it
you hear
work?
us?
Can you hear us?
yeah, no.
Try again.
Can you hear us now?
Or Danielle before.
Can you hear us now?
Just unplug it and plug it back
That's
in.
better. I heard Jeff.
Okay, there, let's try that.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
All right.
I think there's something wrong here.
I mean,
So approval of previous month's minutes. Does anyone make make a motion to approve the previous month's minutes as amended with the additional name changes for the attendees?
I would like to move that we approve the minutes to include a link to the presentation
And
and otherwise as amended.
I'd like to second.
fantastic. All in favor? Aye. All right. So we have put it on that. Okay. Good call out, Paige. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, moving on. Public invited to be heard, and I think we do have public invited to be heard. So just Sherry, you say your name and your address and how about 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sherry Malloy, 1632 Sherman Way, and Longmont resident since 1987. I'm here to speak to the issue of the 4th of July fireworks display. I'm strongly opposed to the option to have the fireworks set off at the city's property on Mountain with viewing at the Dickens Nature area. After the Times Call article about moving the fireworks display from Fox Hill to this location, several people expressed concerns to City Council about the negative impacts on Dickens open space. Our open space master plan specifically says open space is for passive use only. 8,000 to 10,000 people is not passive use. In addition to comments at City Council, there were several negative comments published in the Times Call and the TC line. The issue is not where the fireworks will be set off, but where the spectators will watch, which is Dickens Nature area. That's protected open space. We invested over $4 million in taxpayer money at Dickens, including planting native plants, flowers, shrubs, trees, and installing irrigation. There has been huge irrigation problems there, and all the vegetation has continued to struggle to be well established. It's compromised already. Most of the trees have died. As you know, our St. Vrain Creek is the focal point of this open space. This sensitive riparian area is essential habitat for a variety of birds, raptors, fish, amphibians, pollinators, and other wildlife, which depend on this riparian area for water, shelter, and food. 90% of all wildlife depend on riparian areas for survival at some point in their lives. Concentrating 8,000 to 10,000 people trampling the land with feet, dogs, carts, wagons, strollers, bikes, sparklers, trash and other food waste, ground fireworks like fountains and other loud explosive fireworks will cause tremendous damage to an already challenged area and be incredibly disruptive to wildlife. It's inevitable plastic and other pollutants will be thrown in the creek. Our St. Vrain Riparian Greenway is a jewel, and she and the wildlife she supports deserve better. Pedestrian safety is also an issue. There is certainly no connection to local neighborhoods or residential housing, which will force the vast majority of spectators to use their cars to head to Dickens open space. There is very limited parking at Dickens and along Boston, which means people will have to park at the 2 shopping centers along 119 and across 287. The Best Buy parking lot cannot accommodate 8,000 to 10,000 people, so many will park by Lowe's or across 287 by McDonald's, forcing people to cross 119 and 287. Both these streets are very busy, very wide, and unsafe crossings for pedestrians, especially after dark. This high-traffic area normally has almost no pedestrian traffic, so drivers will be caught off guard. Not everyone will use the traffic lights, which will exacerbate pedestrian danger. The fireworks display at the fairgrounds worked until 2020. when Boulder County wouldn't allow it that year due to COVID. Fox Hill was tried with very real parking and viewing challenges. Again, the fairgrounds worked swell with multiple access and viewing spots, including Rogers Grove, Hobby Lobby parking lot, Home Depot and Target, neighborhoods to the north and west, and Sunset Golf Course. The dispersed viewing locations relieve both parking and traffic nightmares, with hundreds of people not needing their cars at all. The fairgrounds makes the most sense. If the issue is that Boulder County is difficult to work with, then perhaps it's time to do some relationship rebuilding. After all, the fairgrounds fall well within Longmont property lines, and we should be able to utilize this property for one event annually. Finally, additionally, moving the symphony and picnic to Dickens Nature Area is impractical, and also not done without impacts to the land. If Thompson Park has become too small, Roosevelt Park is a great location. It is way more accessible than Dickens for musicians hauling their instruments and for picnickers too. Similarly, the city has a well-established template for events at Roosevelt with stages, power, etc. Plus, Roosevelt is close to businesses for sandwiches, ice cream, coffee, and adult beverages. I do like the city's plan to include drones this year for people to get a sense of that. Hopefully people will embrace the drones and we can move toward eventually replacing fireworks displays with drone shows sometime in the future. While I and most people really like fireworks, there is no denying the harm caused to people, pets, and wildlife. By the way, the 2002 Open Space and Master Plan clearly identifies activities the community believes are acceptable and those that are not of open space, defining passive recreation. Fireworks was specifically identified as a 5 of the public comment that indicated it was not acceptable on open space. Please do not support this option to exploit our Dickens Natural Area protected open space. Instead, please make a recommendation for City Council to direct staff to pursue the fairgrounds for fireworks and Roosevelt Park for the symphony, concert, and picnic. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate your input on that. We do have an agenda item. We're going to be diving deep into the event. So we'll discuss it at that time. We're 2 agenda items away, but we're almost there. Okay, that's it for public event to be heard, right? So we will move into new business. The first up is discussing the recreation fee increases in budgets. So Jeff, you're going to help us. Ben's going to help us with this one.
Okay, we had this one on the last time. The sheet for your guys' packet is in there. It shows what the fees we are planning for. Right now we're targeting May 15th. Trying to fit it in with the brochure, enough time to be out, enough time for people to understand that and plan for it. But before summer activities actually start up, including Sunset Pool. This is due to a budget situation in recreation where currently there is not enough budget to get through the rest of the year. We do need to get to a situation where we can appropriate some dollars, and this will take us towards that. That being said, we have had some forward movement as far as response from Treasury about where we're at with the budget. Jeff, do you want to talk about that meeting a little bit?
No.
Okay. So where we're at with that right now is we do have some plans. One of the biggest holdbacks.
Let me back up just a little bit. So I think one of the things that is really important for everybody to know is the financial policy that requires recreation to recover 80%. And that excludes at-risk programming, free community events, and capital over $5,000. Everything else that we spend has to be recovered at that 80%. So in 24, we have a budgeted revenue of $4,125,000 and expenditures of just a little over $6 million. And so for us to be able to get to a place where we're able to start spending or appropriating money, we have to bring in another almost $600,000 before we can get any advantage of that to help us with expanding our expenditures. And part of the challenge of that is that costs have gone up so drastically over the last 4 years. In 2020, we, compared to our budget today, just for wages for recreation, it's gone up over $927,000 with really no additional services to any of our community. And so we have to get in a place where we're getting more people to participate in our programs and to be able to bring in more money to be able to pay the bills at the end of the year, if you will. So Ben is proposing the fee increases, and I'll let you talk more about that. But cost recovery is really the driver of what sets what we can and can't do in recreation. One of the things that Ben referred to, a meeting that I was at, is that in general, the city administration agreed for recreation to make 2 proposals yet this year. One is to increase our scholarship program from $100 per person to be able to go to $300 per person. That's generally for everybody 17 and younger, and we would like to include that to include people with disabilities. And then the second item would be to review the cost recovery program, which hasn't been looked at since 2008. Cost recovery at that time went from 70% to 80%. The city was really in economic downturn, and so recreation generally over the years, and I think Ben would agree with this, that as the economy tends to go down, recreation has a bigger appeal within our community, that people aren't as able to travel and are still looking for things to do. So we would look at trying to drop that back down to 70%, or look at things that could possibly be excluded, like access to the outdoor pools would be one of the things that we would look at, so that as many of the kids and people in our community can access those pools during the summer months.
For the scholarship program itself, to get credit for the amount that we do give out, we're rebuilding that program now, but for years that was around $75,000 worth of programming. So we got some credit for doing that. And there are a few other things in there that we want to look at. So kind of a package to bring this all together and put us into a place where we can pay the bills. That's what it comes down to at the end of the year. We do expect the increase that's proposed that we're planning on for the rest of the year. A rough estimate is between $200,000 and $300,000, and then for a full year, a little more than that.
Hey Ben, I don't think they can hear you as well as they can hear Jeff. I don't know if we're gonna move the microphone. I don't think it'll move. Looks like it's a short cord.
Well, I'll try to project this way a little bit better. I think I get a little bit deep at times. So, that's what it is. I'm really tired. Sorry.
Do you want to go into any detail on the?
Well, in general, as far as the fees, and you guys have had this, it's a standard how we do a standard increase, which is about 10%, and then everything is equalized to make sense from the daily drop-in, so that we have 50 cents, so that the numbers work, so that the passes relate to each other. If you pay for a year, it's a better deal. So there's a program that we kind of have in place to do that. So that's how those came around, and then we have a general directive to staff for programs to raise those 10%, and there's some flexibility there because There are other factors. If a program is brand new, it's just getting started, we may not want to impact that. If it's rolling and very successful, that's where we certainly would. Sports in particular are subject to market, and in particular among that, the adult sports. So you really have to, you can't just up softball by $200, for example, or folks will just go somewhere else. So we know that. So that's the basis of where these numbers come from. Yeah. So any questions?
So let's start with the discussion, then we'll move into kind of next steps. Sam, if you have a point, an item that you would like to raise, I'll start with you. If you do, if not, that's fine.
Thank you for asking. No questions. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Paige?
So, I struggle with this. I mean, you know, I'm a huge supporter of recreation, and at the same time, I feel like this is just further pricing people out of recreation, and I know that that is not what you want, and you guys are working with the system you're given, but you know, when we were doing the ballot initiative, I heard from a lot of people that they already couldn't afford the rec center. They're like, I can't pay, you know, the cost it is for a family to be a member at the rec center. And I feel like that's what we want the recreation facilities for, is to be accessible to families, to be as accessible as possible to as many citizens as possible. You know, and at the same time, I don't think the city is setting you guys up for success, the government, because the city council, they're not necessarily upgrading facilities. You know, I think, so that may cause you to lose people. I mean, there are problems with the ice rink, so you couldn't, you know, maximize recovery with people going there during the season. So I really feel like the city should be looking, before they ask you to make another fee increase, like a few months after the last fee increase, they should be looking at changing that recovery rate and how they can better enable more citizens of Longmont to have access to the rec center without having to keep raising fees.
Thank you, Paige. Scott?
I have two questions just in general. How does the 80% cost recovery compare to like cities?
It's higher. I have ad hoc information. The problem we run into when we do this, and we've done this in the past when I was at Lafayette and also here, is that it's apples and oranges at times. So what's covered, what isn't, what's in there, what isn't. But in general, what I have found are cities are between 60 and 75%. Lafayette, for example, is at 75%, but they're not held to that. They don't. There's nothing they're actually held to. So it's just a guideline for them. I talked to them this week. Fort Collins is at 70%. Loveland's at 65%. And again, I want to emphasize that there are things in each one that will be different. And so actual apples to apples is a challenge. I certainly haven't heard of anybody really at 80% or above it. That's been, we do feel like at this point that's high.
And then how are non-resident rates established outside of resident rates?
Established by council, and those are set for 25%.
25% premium.
25% premium.
And how does that compare to that?
You'll see that, and you'll not see it. It varies by city. A lot of cities have non-residence rate and net resident rates. Some don't. It varies back and forth.
Sorry,
You're
okay.
good.
So then the general perception, which we already know is out there because we heard it during the election, other times. Now, property taxes are through the roof, right? So city must be flush with a ton of money. Why do we have the disconnect that, property taxes, in some cases have gone up 20-40% in a few years, and we still have a budget problem for stuff like this for the city?
Well, I don't know that everybody would consider that we have a budget problem. within recreation. I think that the belief is that the budget was based on the policy, and recreation is trying to find ways to work within that. I think if changes are gonna happen, they wouldn't happen until the 25 budget is part of that issue. If we don't raise rates, we're going to have to look at other ways to reduce our costs, which could include cutting some things. And that, in my opinion, is even worse than raising the fees.
Does a 10% increase in fees though, like, already price you out? I mean, you're trying to both increase the number of participants and increase fees, and that it goes against the supply and demand curve. And so I think that's just, aspirational. It's not actually an operational sort of thing. It's just like, so is there a forecasting of if you raise your prices 10%, you lose 12% of people coming? I mean,
In our history here, and this will be the shortest time between a fee raise that we have done, so I don't have a record for something like that, but that has never happened. Our usage has never gone down comparatively. Okay. And current usage, just the rec center for comparison right now, is at and above where we were in 18 and 19.
Right, we talked about that being too high, hence why we wanted to, have a new recreation center as it is.
The rec center, at the certain times of day, when you go at 9, 10 in the morning, you go at 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it is very, very full right now. Which is good.
The cost of business has just gone way up, and I think if anybody goes out to eat, you notice how much more things cost, and when you have a division that has a cost recovery requirement, our costs our expenses go up, so our revenue, what we charge, has to go up as well.
Hey.
If this is a city policy, can the city choose to reduce your cost recovery or give you some relief from that cost recovery?
Yes, but that can only be done by city council. And again, if we reduce our cost recovery, there is an expense that will go with that. It isn't just that we lower our fees, that somewhere in the general fund is going to be less money that can be used to fund other things, whether that's recreation or other, park kind of things. Because right now we put in 23 we generated roughly 4.2 million in revenue. If we reduce the cost recovery, that would go down, which then would have an impact in other areas of the city. And if they might be able to backfill with other sales tax or whatever, but that's there is a cost to lowering it.
What I'm getting the feeling is that the revenue has gone up, and that maybe we're all thinking that money should be there, and it could come from other places, and we'd like to see that. If I'm not speaking for the board too much, that's kind of what I'm gathering. I know I'm priced out of using. I really think about it. Okay, can I do 5 things while I'm at the rec center? Because I'm not just gonna go and swim. Because it's money, you know what I mean? So, right, it is a thing. I'm also wondering if it's in the cost recovery, that we have to have, except for free events. Have we thought about making lots of things free community events? Like maybe yoga classes, free community event? Just labeled free community event, I don't know, just to get around it. I don't know, but I think the money's there.
I can't respond to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
And council or city manager may have other priorities.
Yeah.
But I think we would be, if we wanted to test a yoga in the park and do it for free, I think we could do that. But to purposely try to circumvent the policy, I think there would be some
People
direct
will-
feedback.
People would be a little frustrated with you, yeah, like I just
Yes.
direct
It's very gentle.
feedback, and I mean, I get that.
And those accounts that don't recover also have their own budget too. So the community events budget is a specific budget, so if we try to put something into there, there's no money in that. budget.
Okay, okay, that makes sense,
But-
I get that, but I look at, you know, like the library can't, like, when I worked with the library, they are literally not allowed to do cost recovery, even if there's a family that says, can I pay $5 for this? Like, this, how'd I do? I'm like, they cannot do any cost recovery, yet recreation, which is also essential, has to do 80%. That seems really unbalanced as far as city budget to me, that it would be like that. I'm not saying I'm necessarily against raising the fees, but I'm just bringing those things up. And I think the last thing we should do is bring salaries down. Already our recreation staff, I mean, even with the raises, we know that a lifeguard has lives in their hands and that they deserve like a real wage because they're like doing actual life-saving work and things like that. So we shouldn't reduce that staff. I think that's the most important thing to me.
I'm glad you raised that because that was actually the point that I was going to raise. So you mentioned, Thomas, I'll give you a chance to speak to this. You mentioned, you know, the implication of if we don't do this, take this action now raising fees, we have to make some cuts. Have you thought about what those cuts might be at this stage in terms of staff, programs, so forth? Like, what do we really, get a sense of what that really would look like? I know it's a hard question to answer on the spot like this, but.
Well, we've thought of some, but they haven't been well received, probably worse than this conversation here.
Yeah.
I really feel like we're in a bit of a chicken or the egg kind of thing.
Sure.
And I hear the concern about raising fees, but I don't see that we have really a choice at this point until we can get a proposal during the budget process to the city council to be able to revisit the cost recovery, and are there things like outdoor swimming pools that could be excluded from that cost recovery? Maybe other youth programs, maybe adults still have to, and I'm spitballing here, so none of this is adults might be in a better place to pay than what some of the kids are. We've talked about do we open all the pools outdoors, and that was one that was not received well. But there are pools that do financially better than others, and we have 3 outdoor pools, not opening one and driving the use to the other 2 was something we talked about, but we won't be moving forward with that. So we have to look at other ways to do this. Revenues were very good last year. They were almost $400,000 ahead of what was budgeted. And I do think that the administration is acknowledging that whether you're at 80% or 77%, $400,000 is still a good number, and maybe that's the direction we head, is try to make sure we keep bringing in more money than what's budgeted, and then work with them to still allow us to appropriate some additional funds. Just to give you an example of how difficult the wages are, in 2019 at the rec center, we had like $788,000 budgeted in temp wages. In 2024, we have $724,000, and actually spent over $900,000 last year, because part of our challenge is that in the 2021 budget, recreation was not bringing in any money or much money because of COVID. So our budget was cut
by $1.1 million. So as money was being added to temp wages, that let me back up a second. The 1.1 was the equivalent of cutting 25% of our budget, except in the areas of regular employees and the matching benefits. So that means the rec center budget was cut for temp wages by the 25%. So every time money was added over the years since then, it was 25% short of what we really needed. And so we're having to find ways to save money in other areas of the budget to be able to spend the money in the temp wages where we need to.
It's out of balance.
Yeah. And so
It's severely out of balance.
Very out of balance.
Paige.
So,
You need to, it's gotta, the only two they sometimes still struggle to hear.
Oh.
I'm getting reports over here.
Oh.
sorry.
But this end of the table's solid. You guys are doing a
Well,
good
we're
job.
closest to the microphone. I feel like stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm sure you guys do too, because I fundamentally believe that the city is just under-investing in recreation. And they're forcing you guys into an impossible position and, negatively impacting the public by continuing to raise rates. I mean, it just raised at the beginning. I mean, it was like 6 months ago, right?
A year ago, February 1st.
Doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
My place.
Yeah, but, I just fundamentally think the city should be investing more in recreation and prioritizing making it accessible to, people with lower incomes, having a sliding scale, some way to address accessibility. And this just feels like a Band-Aid that's gonna make the public frustrated, because they've already said things are too expensive and now they're gonna have a negative connotation with recreation. And I don't know how to send a message to city council that this is not okay. That we are the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the city is under-investing in recreation, it's not okay. So I don't wanna negatively impact you guys, because you guys are doing the best that you can. But I also don't, I don't think that this continued fee increase is the answer.
I believe last year we were talking about this exact issue with the whole missing your quarter of your budget. Is there no, I'm sure we talked about it off air towards the end of it. Is there no recovery clause or anything like that that you guys can get back and get yourself back into normal with that budgetary deficit you're still running?
There is a clause to that the commitment was that once we started bringing in more revenues, that we would be able to appropriate that money to be able to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is we have to get to the 80% recovery before we can take advantage of that. And again, at the end of last year, we were 77, 78% thereabouts.
Yeah.
So that $400,000, based on the 80%, we had no benefit from bringing in that extra money. So basically what I think I hear tonight is that we need to move up our scholarship conversation sooner with council and at least get the information in front of council about cost recovery. So as we go into the 25 budget, they're aware of the challenges that we have.
I think that, and then I like what Paige said, every word of it, it was what I meant to say, but she says better. And really with emphasizing the whole idea of, I know it's complicated, but looking into sliding scale, because the people that need it the most, and their kids just want to go swimming that day, they didn't plan today because they're working both jobs today. They're not planning today to get the scholarship for the summer. And the people that get the scholarships are the people that are on it, and they're the people that are connected and that have somebody helping them connect and things like that. But I see there's just more than two Longmonts. There's more and more people that are affluent coming to Longmont. It's apparent because there's people in the restaurants, and I'm like, how can you? Like, I don't even understand, like, how you can go to a restaurant on Tuesday. So there's more people who are affluent, and then there's more people who are impoverished, and there's more people that are just kind of struggling, like not quite in the poverty line, but probably in the Boulder County poverty line, but they don't even know how to access things like scholarships and things like that. And no matter how much you advertise it, it's still going to be a lot for the people that need it the most. It's a lot for families to apply for a scholarship or things like that, to get this free. If there's like, I don't know the answer, but a sliding scale. And I don't know the answer of how you would do that and make it easy. Like, it's complicated, but there's got to be an answer. And somebody's probably doing it someplace, because all around the nation, communities are like this right now, you know. Yeah.
Just as a clarifying, you mentioned that maybe one, just as a soft detail, it's not a hard number, but that some communities aren't held as strictly to their recovery percentages, or
Absolutely.
Is there a reason why Longmont has to be as strict, or that's just a city council?
It's a city, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's at one point, and for many years, the city, recreation did very, very well.
Yeah.
Just my experience being in lots of rec centers over the years, I can tell you the run here is as busy as you will find in the Front Range. It just is, and we were doing very well when I started in 07, and so it was never an issue. We were always running between 85 and 95%, up to as much as 95%. And so when it's not an issue, we don't worry about it. There's flexibility within the budget year to year, and we're able to add things and appropriate when we need to. So this is a very new situation for us. And yes, other cities have faced it and face it in different ways.
Okay. And so just for the perception of, because this is a little bit more of a macro goal for the whole thing, but is it a 5-year, 10-year type thing that we're still going to pursue another rec center, or that's just kind of tabled until...
Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something we want to approach again.
Yeah, I just didn't know if...
We discussed that here in this group, and in our groups, our management, we talked about that. We certainly don't have a timeline.
No.
But absolutely, the community does need another rec center.
Yeah.
We know that.
I guess it wasn't so much as to set a timeline. I was just more for the perception of the public asking for more money in this particular way. You guys being forced to ask for more money in this way after the public kind of lambasted the idea of having a new rec center. Does anyone see that as kind of a perception issue towards, we have to raise money now for a facility that we can't even maintain?
Well, it's not for us.
I
understand where you're going. As far as perception.
Just perception. It wasn't the hard idea.
From our point of view right now, it's staying afloat.
Yeah.
So it's
the division, not
the division.
Yes.
In its entirety. So we were down to numbers hard, $27,000-ish at the end of last year. To give you an example, out of a $5.9 million budget.
Yeah.
We're down to that much, and it's in the wrong accounts. So I spent 2 months with finance trying to find money to put into the right little accounts to pay Visa cards, for example, just to pay our bills day to day. We got there, but we know this year will be worse. We know that for a fact, because last year there were things we still didn't have open and going at the beginning of last year. Everything is open full speed right now, and so we know that, and there were raises for staff, and we were given money we would like to utilize for raises for temp staff. It's really rough, and we can't try to appreciate those folks because they keep us open. we're choosing as a society, and it's great, you know, to pay folks better. I think that's great, but there's cost, and that's really what it comes down to.
Well, 80% was arbitrarily plucked from the tree of thing. 80% does not have to stay plucked. It's my message to council. It doesn't. They can change. They made it. They can change it. They made that goal. They can change it.
Which is a great point, because speaking of, this is a great discussion. I like where we're heading here. I think I want to move into like the action phase. What are we going to do about this information we just learned, and what's the next steps? I would love to make some type of recommendation to City Council tonight if we can align as a board on that. Of course, there's I think some differing ideas on what that might look like. So I think maybe one way for us to do this is just to do an informal, not an actual vote, just a straw poll on what we think the focus of the recommendation should be, and then move from there. How's that sound?
Yeah.
So let's just do it informally. How many people here on the board would be interested in making a motion that's related to the fee change itself as the focus of the recommendation to City Council?
Just for the record, council does not have to approve the fee change.
Of course.
We have that authority delegated to us for recreation.
Ah, I did not know that actually. That changes a lot actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's a unique thing, but with how often we have to set fees, there's no way we could be going to council all the time to be able to adjust up, down, or set. So that is designated to Ben and I.
I see. Okay. Okay. So this recommendation would just be to city staff then. I see. Okay. So then the alternative then would be some recommendation related to the just gut check of related to the recovery target, and making some recommendation to City Council to modify the recovery target as an action. Who would be interested in pushing that forward? This is a gut check.
I have a question though for you, Jeff. So if you have the authority to approve the fee increase, but you don't have authority to not meet the financial target, right? City Council would have to somehow say, we are going to give you relief from this requirement and allow you to spend these funds that are sitting there, but you can't spend them because you haven't reached the
I believe that to be
cost
true,
recovery.
yes. That I don't have the authority to appropriate funds until we hit the 80%. I believe that to be true.
I'm trying to write.
Yeah. And maybe what we do is next month we come back with some proposals for cost recovery, things that we could present to you, and then based on your recommendations, that's what we could take to council.
Okay, so not making a recommendation
Yeah.
this evening on that recovery portion of it.
Yeah. But I think it was, the one thing I guess would like a informal vote on if I could is yes, thumbs up or thumbs down on fee increase, yeah.
I mean, we can also, that doesn't have to be, that could be formal actually. We can
Yeah.
formal that.
Yeah.
So,
We could still have informal and then make it formal. I mean, I like informal first because people can change their minds based on conversation.
okay, so informally, not as an actual motion, informally, who would be in favor of the fee increases as proposed?
Yeah.
Reluctantly.
It's
But it's the only thing that can happen, to stay afloat.
So I think that would just be paid, sorry to pick on you. As I saw Sam's hand was up as well.
If it's worth noting, begrudgingly, because these guys have been put in that position. It's kind of like when you talk to a doctor, but your insurance provider gets to pick what medicine you
What medicine you
get. It's very similar.
It's very similar.
Yeah, so that's kind of the pill.
Patient.
So I kind of just want to test this with you guys to see. I mean, I was wondering what would happen if we had passed a resolution that requested city council to relieve recreation services from having to implement the fee increase and instead allow you to spend appropriated dollars without having to meet the 80% recovery rate. I mean, is that a possible thing though? Like, we ask council to consider that. Is that worded correctly?
Yeah, I think it's worded correctly. Whether that's doable, I have no idea.
And if we were to do that, would we be able to hold off the fee increases until that would be decided on by the next city council meeting? Question for you.
Well, the
timing is rough.
The timing is rough.
Yeah, because the brochure is in production and it has to be in there. It goes out here in 2 or 3 weeks.
And literally tomorrow is the deadline on that brochure. That's the point we've reached right now.
I see. Okay. Well, we have options here where we can take this. Is there anyone that wants to make a motion for the fee increases, recommending the fee increases to city staff, not city council, as defined in the packet? You don't have to. There's no rules.
Yeah.
No pressure. I mean, there's rules. But.
I mean, I would like to move to for the fee increase as recommended in the packet. Yeah.
I just want to know, do you think that would weaken our case to push for the 80% relief if they're like, but you're going to be fine because there's a fee increase?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
My opinion is I don't think it does. I don't think it weakens it, to be clear. I've projected this out, and the way we're set up now, I don't know that we can do 80% again. Again, the way we're choosing to pay temporary staff, I don't know that we can reasonably do. There would have to be another fee increase that we can't do. This is, we're going deep here. We really don't see that as realistic to do another fee increase in a year. Even with this one, we don't quite get to 80%. I don't think. I still think we come up slightly short or right at it to where there's no flexibility still.
And part of, I don't want this to come as a shot to city council or the city administration, because they've always been very supportive of recreation. I think this is a timing thing where after so many years of it working, after the reduction, that it's catching up with us now. And I think that, to be fair to council, they can't be really criticized for this, because I don't think they even know that this is an issue right now.
Even, you were last month, Councilor McCoy at the end, when I rushed through a little bit of this, he immediately said, yeah, maybe this is something we need to look at. Let's get this down to another level. So his response last month on record was saying that in a generalized idea of support. So I think that there is some understanding there. I don't think doing this hurts our case necessarily, because it doesn't get us there for sure.
Okay.
So, just one more thing. Just an idea, perhaps we should just extend it, because I think we've talked about this, bring options in the next meeting to what we would raise to city council for modifying the 80% recovery, whatever that might be, getting more leeway, reducing that to 75%, what are the options that you might come up with? Would it be helpful if we added that to the motion?
When will they be considering, what would be timely?
Well, we'll present our budget requests in May for recreation for them to consider. The deadline will be towards the end of May for us to put in any options, and
we would like to, whatever we present to you, the feedback you get, move forward with what is presented to council with those options.
I would like to formally request that you bring options to us that include a lower cost recovery rate.
You don't necessarily need a motion for that, but.
No, correct. But I
agree, yeah. But you can also, of course, if you want to make a motion for that, there's no,
Finding.
But we had, the hesitation I have is, there was already a motion on the floor.
Yeah, you're right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But you said you're right.
Yeah, I'm just asking you as staff to our board to please.
Yeah.
Bring options.
Thomas, you've been really interrupted.
No, but
Please.
yeah, don't worry. So again, I'd just like to move to approve the fees as presented in the packet.
Do we have a second?
I will reluctantly.
I said it reluctantly too. Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, we have 5.
Did we get?
We got Sam.
You didn't ask, but I'm opposed.
All those opposed? Yeah, I apologize. Yeah. I'm a little bit off my game today. Okay. I think that wraps up for this discussion. We can move on to the next agenda item. Next up is the proposed 4th of July event at Dickens Park, which should be a good one. Jeff.
I'll start us off and we'll go from there. So in January, the city manager approached a number of city staff about the options for relocating the 4th of July out of Fox Hill to an area down by Dickens Park. One of the main reasons for that request was to be able to have the fireworks shot from a piece of property that is owned by the city, and that would be the fire training center just off of Martin. And that way there is no issue with somebody coming into the fallout area, the majority of it, like what was an issue at the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds have had challenges where they would be shooting off the fireworks and people would be right there on top of them and totally unsafe to people to be that close. So we as staff recreation staff agreed to come up with an event, work with the Kiwanis to be able to move the event from Fox Hill. The Kiwanis are still very interested in being part of the event. They will fully fund the fireworks, and then we are requesting a little over $81,000 to be able to do the event at Dickens Park. The staff originally proposed to City Council that the event take place in the park just because of the time of year. We were really criticized over the years about doing Rhythm on the River in Rogers Grove and how hot it was already, let alone doing it on Boston, and how much heat could be instead of in the park. We have known from the beginning of the park design is that it was really never intended to be a special event location. The commitment that Recreation and Parks had made internally was that it was going to be more of an open space, passive recreation type of use and not large events. So council, after the information was presented, they asked us to come back to you all and talk to you about your thoughts about the event and what passive recreation meant to you as a board and how as it relates to open space. So with that, Danielle will talk a little bit about what passive recreation means to us based on the code. And then Sam will talk about what our possible solution is to hopefully make it a win-win for everybody. Danielle, you want to take it?
Yeah, so like Jeff was saying, per the city council motion, on February 27th, they want Crab to weigh in on, does the proposed event that we're gonna go through meet the definition of passive recreation? So, this is what we're gonna guide you through now. So, 1, the proposal, 2, understanding, 3, analyzing the two together so you can see in the coming slides, there'll be slides that are talking about the proposal, understanding slides that will help you understand the context, and slides where we talk about the proposed event as it pertains to the context that I'm gonna lay out for you. And then 4 is for you to discuss and decide. So let's go through. So up here in the corner, you can see that this is the proposed event. So first of all, in terms of passive low impact recreation and what does it mean, it's always project and site specific. So it comes up for every county, every municipality that land manages parks and open spaces. And so you have to look at each proposal differently. So we went through this process with the Button Rock Management Plan, and this is something that David mentioned to City Council, but it was different. We had different parameters. We had a preserve that we were dealing with. So that's why we want to look at each instance separately. There are general definitions for passive recreation, low impact recreation that you can find, and we'll talk about that, but then we're going to layer on the context. So the proposed event or activity, we want to look at all these pieces when we're thinking about passive low impact recreation. The size and the magnitude of the event. This one,
yeah.
Do we want to?
Yeah. So this is the event as it was proposed to council, with the event in the park itself. Estimated attendance about 10,000 people. Kiwanis thinks that they had about 4,500 people at Fox Hill, so we're anticipating about double that. Attractions include food trucks, beer garden, midway games, stage with live music. Event infrastructure is the not so glamorous parts, portable toilets, trash, dumpsters, fencing, that kind of stuff. And then as far as duration, it'll be a 5 to 9 event with setup and strike happening same day, so it'll be approximately 12 hours. And then noise and light, obviously with fireworks, is pretty high. We also have ambient lighting and safety lighting.
And then, so going through size and magnitude, duration and timing, noise and light levels, types of use. So is it consumptive or non-consumptive? So non-consumptive would be like walking through a park. A large event like this is more in the consumptive category because a lot of the things that Sam was just talking about, there's lots of people, the infrastructure, and then types of impact. I don't understand why this cuts off, but I can read the top of the words.
New social trails disturbance.
Yeah, just these are the types of things that we think about, and we can come back to this if we need to, but are the impact types short or long term? Are they temporary or permanent? Some of the things that could happen in a nature area, wildlife disturbance, soil compaction. We know a lot about wildlife in Dickens Farm Nature Area. An increase in weeds will definitely happen. New social trails near the riparian corridor is a concern. So now, understanding the context. So first to understand the context, we're talking about a nature area. So our code defines a nature area, which we previously called district parks. So you'll see it in both ways in the code, district park or nature area, but in two different sections. First, in section 404, district parks are devoted to low impact recreational uses. In section 13, nature area means a designation of public land providing access to and enjoyment of important natural, historic, and cultural resources and allow for limited, low impact, and passive outdoor recreation uses that fit the unique natural characteristics of the particular area. And then finally, hours of use in nature areas. The hours of public use shall be between 1 hour before sunrise and 1 hour after sunset. And we just heard this is a 12-hour setup to strike. Now I'll move them over here. So then continuing on with understanding the context, we have various documents, adopted plans, and project work pertaining to this particular, that speak to this particular nature area. So Dickens Farm nature area is actually encumbered by a conservation easement that is held by Boulder County. And along with that came a baseline report at the time that the easement was put in place. We have system-wide plans that speak to what low impact passive recreation means. And why I keep saying low impact and passive recreation is because those terms come out of the conservation easement. And then we have some general definition in the open space master plan, a bit of a definition in the Parks, Recreation, and Trails master plan. We also are beholden to our wildlife management plan, so all these are adopted plans. Then we've got site-specific plans. Dickens has its own master plan. There's the St. Vrain Greenway master plan, because the greenway goes through this nature area. And then there's the resource management and the project work that we've been doing at this particular nature area, the Resilient St. Vrain project. And so right now we've got all the native plantings are under warranty still. So low impact passive recreation. So this is coming out of the open space master plan. So you with low impact passive recreation, the idea is minimal development, preserving the wildlife and ecosystems, minimizing environmental impact, and emphasizing preservation, minimal rules of engagement, coordination, or formal programming, non-consumptive uses, wildlife observation, walking, etc. So I didn't know I'd be ping-ponging them back. In terms of, and so now we've gone through understanding the context and then kind of analyzing the proposed event and the context. We do have some commitments that we have to think about here. We've talked about the Parks and Recreation and Trails Master Plan and passive recreation, but we have to acknowledge that City Council directed staff that with each open space, the goal would be to have a conservation easement on it to protect the conservation values of that encumbered open space in perpetuity. So we've got that direction and intent from council, and this does have a conservation easement on it. And so then we've got the partnership and agreement with Boulder County, who is the grantor of the conservation easement. We are, it is our job to uphold the conservation values that are laid out in the conservation easement. And it's also, our promise to the public. And then number 2, open space sales and use tax. So voters have taxed themselves and to protect open spaces. So it's our job to come to you and talk to you about, the idea of passive recreation and protecting this nature area or open space.
Okay, so now we'll talk about the proposed site layouts, so you can kind of follow the logic. So this is the option we just talked about, the one that was presented to council as for the attendee experience, the best option. And that's to focus sort of the footprint of the event on the manicured areas. So down by the picnic shelter is where the stage would be, it's where the symphony would be. On the pathways would be where the food trucks are, this would be the beer garden, and food truck area, and then portable toilets here. So that's kind of the more focused. From the event perspective, a centralized footprint, grassy areas are cooler than on hardscape, and we would provide shuttling only for attendees with mobility needs. There's obviously a large impact to the nature area. We would obviously be encouraging people to use the nature area after sunset, and concerns that Danielle just mentioned. This was option 2. So this was, city manager kind of directed us to look at Boston Avenue as an alternative. So that's just basically moving everything up to the street, which is a fine footprint. Also, the stage would be over on the east side of the street. Vendors kind of lined up along the street, and then a beer garden kind of in this grassy area here. And we would anticipate lots of foot traffic in this purple area. And then the festival itself would start here with a closure, and then this would be parking over on the west side.
Could you go back to that, could you show me where the stage is? I just can't see.
Stage is right here.
Stage is right there, so people standing to look, it doesn't look like there's any place for anybody to watch people on stage.
Well, so the stage would be sort of pointed west, so people would back up into the street to face the stage, which is not ideal from a performer perspective either, instead of looking directly into the sun. But that's the best way to line it up so that they also have viewing of the fireworks. The fire training center is over in this area here. And this red circle is the fireworks fallout zone, so we would have to control this so that people don't enter that during the fireworks. So the stage would be the natural end point of the festival.
And, okay, another question in here then. So usually the symphony was like early in the day. And then, but you were talking about stage later in the day, right before fireworks. And
Yeah.
so the symphony would move to when they got sunset?
Let me try to clear up a little bit of confusion that I think really clearly exists still. And going back a little bit of history, the symphony approached us this winter, or early, I want to say December or before, talking about the possibility of using Roosevelt rather than Thompson Park. Our recommendation to them at that time was, it's really going to be hot at Roosevelt. There's no shelter there's no shade as opposed to Thompson Park with all the great trees. So stay there. Well, a week later, we find out that Thompson Park's going to be worked on. So the general plan is for them to go back to Roosevelt this year and this year only, not considering this at all. Separately, we're tasked with coming up with this plan, and our general thought and the general plan, nothing finalized yet because we have to get from A to B, is to have the symphony do their concert during the day, probably at Roosevelt Park this year, if they do it this year, and then play during the fireworks at the fireworks.
Oh, so they have double.
Mm-hmm. So if the Roosevelt Park thing had never come up this year, they would just be doing their concert at Thompson as they generally have. And that would be fine. I think that's where the confusion. So what we are proposing and what they're currently planning on is 2 concerts during the day.
Well, they already do 2 concerts.
Oh, they already do?
They're booked by another city to usually do.
They have been, yeah. We for a number of years have been trying to work towards them playing in Longmont during the fireworks, and
they're trying to find a location to work that out has been a real challenge. So that's, does that make sense to everybody?
Okay, yeah, that clears up Tom's things.
Yeah.
We as a staff are very committed to the Thompson event. We feel like the folks that attend that event are really not the same people that are gonna come to fireworks at 9:30 at night.
A quick question. Sorry, it's hard to jump in. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. it's a little hard to hear everything, so maybe this was already asked, but on the Thompson and Symphony question, are we quite sure that the construction at Thompson will start before the 4th? It seems like it's been extending out and might start after that. It'd be a shame to move them and actually not be starting construction until August, for example.
We're on schedule, so design documents are done end of March. It's going out to bid. We're gonna award in May, and we anticipate construction starting in June.
Okay, so everything points at it being closed in July. Okay, thanks.
One of the, so sorry, go ahead, Sam.
So just on the Boston footprint, the footprint is more compact, which works a little bit better for like waste services and that kind of stuff. Easy shuttle access, it'll be a heavier shuttle toll, just because getting from Harvest Junction, which is gonna be the majority of parking up to Boston, is a little bit further walk. There's gonna be lots of hardscape, which the event infrastructure will sit on, and there should be minimal impact to the nature area from the event infrastructure. Obviously, cons are going to be heat because it's going to be hot. And from the attendee experience perspective, you can't see Boston Avenue when you're walking up from the parking lot at Harvest Junction, so you really have to know where you're going. So you need to activate a little bit along the trail so that people know where they're going. More shuttling and same use of the nature area. So this is the compromise that we came up with that we feel like fits everyone's needs the best, which is to have the festival on Martin Street along the bridge and fence off the areas to encourage people to stay out of the nature area after sunset. So Martin Street has better views, both from the parking lot and towards the mountains. You can look over the nature area from there, and activation along the street makes flow much better, and it still has the stage would be up here facing south, and folks would fill in this way, and along the bridge here along the east side we would do the food vendors, the carnival games, all of that stuff. Here would be the beer garden, and folks would walk up. This is Harvest Junction down here, so they would walk up from the south, and the festivities would be easily visible as they're walking up, so they know exactly where they're going. And this would help keep people out of the nature area after sunset. We wouldn't have to shuttle anyone, so we would just designate a close area of Harvest Junction as ADA accessible parking, and it's the best compromise between attendee experience and protection of the nature area. The only con is obviously going to be the heat, but it's going to be July, so there's nothing we can do about that.
So we would like to hear your feedback about what passive recreation means, your feedback on the 3 locations, and if you believe, I guess, the third option really becomes more of a win-win. What else I will just say is that public safety has really emphasized that they feel like this location is better than the fairgrounds and it's better than Fox Hill, that they feel like there are less safety issues, and I can't talk specifically about them, but that's what they've indicated to us.
Yes.
So,
For all 3.
well, they don't really care about
Yeah.
where it goes, it's just the location, and they feel like it's easier to control traffic here than for sure at Fox Hill. I'll tell you that the Kiwanis have made it very clear that they don't want to go back to the fairgrounds and that they wouldn't. So my thought is that it's here or it goes back to Fox Hill. Again, the city council is this decision maker, but they really want your feedback on the passive part, and by moving it in option 3, does that address those concerns?
Can I just back up a second? Who directed Dickens Farm Park as, like, was
The area city manager did.
So
He didn't necessarily say the park. He believes that the park could be used for events. He preferred or recommended more of the Boston Street access, and we've kind of been, as staff that do organized events, we really feel that hard surface in July is not the best place to go. But understanding that that we would be, and this is just me talking, I believe that I couldn't, in a straight face, go before city council and tell them that having 10,000 people in an open space property is really how it was outlined to be. I don't think that's appropriate.
David, sorry, David.
Yeah, I think that's going to, again, maybe help, the board, the group kind of hone in on what I think council was looking for, I think what staff was looking for. Jeff kind of talked about perhaps definition of passive recreation and low impact. I think, Danielle did a really good job of laying out those definitions we have throughout. I think for me is really looking at which one of these options is the most consistent with those definitions as we go forward. So which ones really respect and uphold those definitions of low impact and passive recreation. So I know we had some other groups throw their definitions of passive recreation. And I think, again, as staff, we have some pretty clear guidelines for conservation easements through the bond language, through ballot language, that we have those definitions. I think the subjective part is it consistent with this use that Danielle talked about, time, space, and location. So that's what was just kind of maybe going it down to that.
Thank you, David. Paige?
Yeah, can you go back to the definitions? So, I'll just start by saying I love fireworks and I would love them to be closer to my house, which this would be. However, just looking at this and knowing the impact of large public events like that, including, all the food trucks and, the extra besides just people coming to watch the fireworks. And just based on my experience working in conservation, I don't think these kind of events are consistent with what is described as low impact passive recreation. People, particularly the first two, I don't know that area well enough to comment on the third option, and that may work. I would have to go there and look, but I think anything that causes that kind of impact to what is essentially a prairie ecosystem in the middle of summer when it's going to be drought stressed, riparian systems that you're still trying to get to reestablish. I think if you have a bunch of people wandering through there's going to be a negative impact. It's going to be stress to wildlife, and frankly, I really would be worried about the fire risk. I mean, grasslands, dry, that seems really scary to me, honestly. So, just for me, this would not fit. I mean, in general, this kind of event, I don't think that nature area was intended for this kind of event because it's a nature area. Now, whether that third option works or not, it may. I would probably look more to you guys to say whether you guys think, it fits. And I don't know if you've talked with Boulder County about whether they would agree that this fits the conditions of the easement.
We haven't talked to Boulder County about the entire, all the options.
So maybe option 3 is the option, if you really could keep all the impacts away. I mean, obviously you'd still have noise and light.
Yeah, we would still have to
less
fence in the event area. I mean, sorry, in the nature area. We would still want to fence out and do crowd control such that we are abiding by the hours of use of the nature area.
I mean,
Well, you can't get there from
Martin, right? You have to get in from Boston anyway.
Well,
There's a fence along Martin. Otherwise, you could ride your bike
Get in
from
there
there.
from Martin? I mean, are you saying or asking?
I think you can't get in from Martin.
You cannot get, not directly.
Not north of the bridge, not
You have to go down to Boston.
well,
Or
there's a
from
path
Harvest
right
Junction.
there, like right
Or
before
from
the,
Harvest Junction.
there's like, cause I run it, like there's a path from that bridge down to the trail on the creek. Like, yeah, so you can get there, like, and, I mean,
at Boston, or
At Harvest Junction.
Or
at Boston,
Yeah.
not
But
off
nothing
North
in between,
on
just
the bridge or the road just to the north.
Unless you're really keen.
I've never been on that road, but maybe I've been on a social trail that I haven't realized was a social trail.
No, there's a ditch along that bike line, there is a big ditch and there is a fence. There's a good 5-foot fence that runs along that back corner.
So I see two hands up. I think David at first, and then Sam was up next. David, did you want to say something?
I will yield
Oh, okay.
to Sam since I've spoken once already, so I'll
Okay.
leave it up to Sam.
Thank you. Sam?
You're always welcome to talk, David. Thank you. Thanks for pulling up this slide. I think this question was just asked, but I couldn't hear. I'm sorry. In this option 3 scenario, you're suggesting that there would be no access from Martin to the Greenway. Intentionally, there would be a fence there, but you could still access the Greenway from the west, could you not?
Well, if you wanted to get down there, you could get down there.
Right, how would you keep people from like just spreading everywhere to watch the fireworks?
I mean, people are going to be, this is what I would do, this is my neck of the woods, this is what I'm like, oh, well, a good place to watch the fireworks is gonna be from an inn or two in the creek. And if I thought of that in 30 seconds, somebody smarter than me thought, like, there's hundreds of people that are gonna do that.
Well, I guess my suggestion is that it is a significant difference of use to have people, walking through and sitting on the grass areas in Dickens Farm than having food trucks and a beer garden located there. So it is pretty different from option 1, which I like. A second question is, in these maps, there's kind of this red area at the north end that's kind of, I think the drop area for the fireworks is closed off.
Mm-hmm.
How it's drawn on here, does that mean that you would not be allowed to walk down from Martin Street from the north part? You wouldn't be able to walk to this part from basically where there's recycling center is, that would be closed?
Yes, only during the fireworks though, only for that 20 minutes during the fireworks show.
Okay, it's just that short closure. That's for that all of Boston there as well?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think one of my concerns is that I don't think there's enough parking at Harvest Junction for how many people you want to have come to this. And I think being able to get there on a bike or by foot from the north, the east, and the west is ideal. It's just that short closure that mitigates my concern on that. That's great. That's all I had for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. David, are you still yielding, or are you raising your hand?
Yeah, if I maybe, Danielle and them did a nice job laying out the slide and talk about the analyze and stuff. I may not be able to hear everything as well as like Sam. However, again, just kind of a reminder, that recreation was put in the spot of having to try to put an event in place with all these constraints. And as we worked through all kinds of iterations, and staff spent a lot of time out there, the mayor spent time on it, Harold spent time on it, rec staff, natural resources staff. Jeff at the 11th hour kind of came up with this proposal, and I'm just going to say I think it does the most to minimize that impact. And for me, like with Jeff, to say it's going to have no impact on this nature area, can't say that, but I think with what they were tasked with, bringing people so they're not either moving through the park or having activities in the park, I think we've done a lot to try to move as much outside of it and give people good ways to get to the event without having to move through the nature area very much. So again, I may be jumping because I can't hear the conversation, but just want to make sure people knew that this was a lot of staff working time to kind of find something that struck that balance that we were all tasked with.
Thank you, David. Paige?
So I guess part of what I'm worried about is that this is setting a precedent to do this here every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be really concerned with the idea that this is going to be perceived as a venue for big public events of this sort.
Can I respond to that?
Daniel, yeah.
The mayor did say that she doesn't want this event this year to set a precedent, that this is the 2024 event, and that she would like something else to be thought of for future years.
And the city manager said that if this did happen every year, it would be the only event, that there would not be any other events approved other than the 4th of July. One of the,
So just on that same piece, like just the topic here, again, that was discussed a lot, Paige, and I think staff has really looked at what other alternatives we can bring them in the future, but again, we can never speak for what councils will direct us in the future. I agree with that, it does set that precedent, but again, I think staff has been through this process trying to be creative about providing new opportunities to go forward too.
So I have a question that I'd like to ask, and it's kind of an obvious one that I think we kind of talked about, but we haven't really gotten to the bottom of. What is the Kiwanis Club's concern with the Boulder County Fairgrounds? Do we know?
not for sure. The challenge that has been indicated is that there's no way to control the fire, where the fireworks are, where they're shot out. And by doing it inside, so that red line is quite a ways away from where they're actually shot off from.
Okay.
And again, it's a fenced area owned by the city, and no one but authorized people could get into that, which is where the biggest risk is.
And have you guys talked with the fire department and they feel comfortable?
They're all
This is their idea. This originally several years ago was their idea.
So we don't fence an area off at Boulder County Fairgrounds with fireworks? I mean,
that's what they indicated.
The fire area, like service area, is not that huge if you used an event company to build a fence around a particular space, right? It just I think we're creating, I don't know, it feels like we're creating $80,000 problem, but if we just put it where we want it, over at Boulder County Fairgrounds, put a fence around it, it costs us $50,000.
But I don't think the city wants that either. The traffic control is much greater, is what they have indicated. None of the fairgrounds parking is available because it's all in the fallout area. So there's no way except by trail or by foot to get to Rogers Grove.
They can't set off the fireworks in the arena. Like the arena is totally fenced. You can't get in there.
Interesting point.
Like you set them off from the arena.
For the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
And the fire department.
And it's dirt.
But the building's right.
I know, and this is just me hearing it said. Kiwanis has talked about how their horse shows going on that weekend, and so they have utilization. So that's one thing I have heard. I don't know that specifically though.
All right, Paige.
I just wanted to go back. So you guys specifically asked whether or not this kind of activity conforms with our view of what is low impact passive recreation.
That's what council is asking.
So,
okay. Well,
my answer is no.
My answer is.
But again, like, can you mitigate? Like, is option 3 mitigating that on a short term? But I think in general, this kind of activity really does not conform.
Scott.
Does the creation of the event though create more people using the space? Like it feels like we're creating more of the problem than if you just launched the fireworks from the fire service center and didn't close down Martin Street other than during the fireworks sort of thing. People are still going to go where I think half of us already said is going to go between Walgreens and whatever and go into the park anyway and find a spot to just hang out in the park. Creating an event near it is that everyone's going to disappear and go and try to find that route to do it anyway.
This has been our directive to come up with an event around it. That's been what we've been told to do.
The second part is the person's done a lot of city bridge. This is
the bridge is
one of
a
the
great
bigger
spot to watch
spots.
fireworks. That's why I would go to the bridge. The bridge is an amazing spot to watch fireworks.
What did you just say? It's what?
So we're literally, if you're on the bridge, you can see the wastewater treatment plant, right? So, and you have the.
Well, we're gonna put a big wall up so you can't see.
Right, I know, but I mean, for someone who's done a bike event that's gone by this route like 5 times, people hate the foundry, they hate the fire station, and they hate like
What,
recycle sort of
what
area.
other
Just
location
like
has the visibility corridor that this has? That, if you go to Roosevelt Park, there's all the trees around, so you lose some of that. When you go back to the fairgrounds, the golf course was used in the past. The trees are blocking some of that, is what people have told us. So, you know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Is the airport not a usable? This ginormous space.
I don't. That has not been suggested.
Okay. And we do public events there already. So it just.
So can we, I mean.
I want to move into an action and yeah.
Well, just, I mean, I think it would be good to discuss as a board, like, there's sort of 2 questions. I think one is, does this event meet the definition that we see of low impact passive recreation? And then I feel like there's another question, which is, given that, is this an alternative that we can live with for 1 year?
They didn't really ask that. They asked about the passive. Did they? I don't know that they haven't seen this either, council.
Yeah. Well, if they're only listening, I know my answer.
Yeah. I just am thinking about, like, precedent is a big thing. Oh, we won't do it, but we could have a whole new council, could have a whole new mayor, but now it's precedent. And then also, like, let's say we wanted to have a 200-person stargazing event there at midnight, that would be shut down right away. Like, and that's so much more passive than this. I
don't know that we would shut that down.
Okay, well, good to know, because that's what my next.
Because we've done some
Okay.
things out at Sandstone that's
Okay.
the same type of.
Okay, because like, you know, like if we're gonna have
land at
this.
Sandstone.
Yeah, okay.
It's a nature, well, not in the nature area, right?
Well, we did though.
Piece of the nature area piece.
It was up above by the upper parking lot where we did it.
So there's a lot of different directions we can go with this, right? I think that probably makes sense to open up the floor if anyone has a motion they'd like to make, and we can move from there about which path we want to go down.
Should we do the informal straw poll about like,
I like
what do you think this has to do with, like, does this fit the definition of use? I mean, is it like, what do you guys think? If you're really, you know, being honest, not like, do you want the event or do you not? Does this fit the definition of use for this area?
Low impact passive recreation in
So,
nature.
so if you think it does,
yeah,
thumbs up. If you think it doesn't fit, not that you're saying you don't want this thing. If you think it, then let's hear. Steve,
so not about option 3, just in general, just for, do we think that this constitutes as passive
use? Yes.
I think that's a fair point. Straw poll and informal is the new thing we're adding to this meeting. Sam, where are you at?
I don't believe it fits the definition of passive use. I think that's thumbs down. Didn't quite track it.
All thumbs down. Okay, that was unanimous. Scott.
Can I ask, Jeff, would you ever approve, or what would be approved as a UOPP in this area for anybody else's event?
No, because it was traditionally, or based on the design of it, was not intended to be an event location.
Right, okay. So
no.
Just the fact that it's
Passing
being
through on the
considered
trail
a
does
first
a lot.
pass, and it's by definition not an event space, it's a weird concept for me to try to wrestle around that. By definition, it's not an event space, but yet we're trying to then build something around an event space.
I saw Paige hand first, sorry.
I just wanted to respond to that. When a park or a nature area is planned, and then there's a master plan, there's a whole public process around how, you know, what that space is can be used for. And in this case, it's a nature area, so it's not a park. It wasn't, we didn't design an amphitheater in there, and then there's a conservation easement over it. So those are the things that are kind of guiding sort of the answer to that.
Right.
And Jim maybe wants to add to what I'm saying.
Yeah, the master plan for this nature area does call for the turf area to be used for small to medium-sized events that focus more on the nature aspects of this nature area, so educational program, that kind of thing. So I've been informed that there is going to be a use of public places event application for a event for teaching the community about the watershed. And so the education stations within the turf area, with they're estimating 200 people over like a 2-hour period.
That'll be in June.
Very
That would
consistent.
not be,
That would
my
be consistent.
opinion, a new OPP thing.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Paige?
I would like to move that we respond to city council that after discussion, we do not believe that an event of this size and nature conforms with the definition of low impact and passive recreation for a conservation nature area.
Point of order, yeah.
So my only thing is, the road isn't part of the park. We're staying away from it.
Understood,
But-
the motion's on the table,
But
right?
the motion's not about that, we're not talking about whether we like the
Oh,
event or
that's-
not, yeah.
The question that we were asked was, does this kind of event conform with that definition?
For Dickens Park.
It's Dickens Park does not, right. Is there a second for that motion that we could probably write down?
I second.
Second is Aaron. Okay, all in favor of that motion?
Sorry, could you restate it for me briefly?
Yes.
I couldn't hear Paige.
Paige, can you picture the spot for stage? I know it's like a change.
We're Paige.
Yeah, she really is.
She's really got a good word.
I moved that we respond to city council that after discussion, we do not feel that an event of this size and characteristics conforms with the definition of low impact and passive recreation for a conservation nature area.
Okay, thanks. Just keeping it narrow to the question they asked us, basically.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And then we had Aaron seconded. And then, okay, so all in favor of that motion, raise hands. No, nobody opposed. The motion passes. Okay, do we, now, we still have, before we move on to the next agenda, do we want to make a motion or do we want to discuss making a recommendation about option 3? Does anyone want to raise that? And acknowledging that is
Yeah,
not.
I have a comment on that. I think it'd be good. It sounds like people are generally somewhat open to the idea of option 3, and I personally think there's a lot of potential there, and would like the chance to workshop that further to try to encourage access and use of impervious surfaces for seating and all kinds of things that can be done with this. I think there's some good ideas. And so I guess my question would be, is it worth making a motion in support of something like that we do think could be compatible with the nature area? And then is there a chance to bring that back next month and talk further about that, or is there, this is gonna start moving like next week and getting started?
We're going back to council on the 26th.
I guess, I mean,
We have to,
if they,
the challenge is, we have to have time to plan this event. July is just around the corner.
Right, but we have to have time to provide feedback. I mean, if we can't provide feedback and then say, well, we would love to help you and provide some alternatives, but it's like, well, it's too late.
So Sam, given that we won't have the opportunity to discuss it in future months, and Paige, I agree with you. Do you still want to proceed with making a motion or not?
I mean, I'm sure staff will summarize that to the council when we discuss it. I don't think we need to make a motion unless we feel strongly about it. Is I'm just stating my perspective that it does seem like we can thread the needle of having an event here. I think there's lots you could do to encourage, to discourage uses of the greenway, that area in Dickens that are not desired, while encouraging attendance. I'd like to think that we can host an event like this in the city in all the spaces that we have. There's more to talk about with the fairground, lots of questions, but if this is the answer that you need to move forward, I think we should try for it and see if we can get it done.
So, related to this site, and this just came up. The discussion with Parks folks has been about some fencing out there. We hadn't really discussed it specifically. Jim, do you want to talk about what we still, if this event went off in this way at Martin, what we still might look at fencing off as within that area, within the nature area?
Yeah, I think you can see the greenway south of the creek. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you want to do that?
Kind of cuts off.
Does the event have to be so extensive? Can it not just be fireworks? Does it have to be food trucks and music and carnival games?
We have been charged to do that part of the event. And I believe that part of the goal would be to provide other entertainment opportunities where it might lessen some of the own negative impacts. Yes. Whether that will work or not, I have no idea.
That makes sense. I mean, that makes more sense to me then. I mean, but people are gonna, people just want to set off fireworks. Seriously, they're cool and fun to set off. They just want to set off fireworks. It'd be kind of nice if people actually just got a spot to go set off their own fountain and Roman candle thing. It'd be really nice if we could just offer that spot for them, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because
that would be cool.
every 12-year-old boy who is 72 and still a 12-year-old boy still wants to do that.
So what are we looking at here? Yeah, the homepage.
So Harvest Junction here, that third option is on Martin Street here. So we would be expecting people, if they're parking here, to probably use the Greenway Trail, come through here, and take it up to Martin Street here. So looking at kind of the most likely areas that people will start infiltrating into Dickens Farm would be fencing off this area to keep them out there. I would ask too then, David, is if there is more concern about people going through the nature area after hours to watch the fireworks, is there a possibility to get rangers or PD to help close off the trail entryways to redirect people out of the nature area, if that's an option or not?
You're on mute.
I can't speak for PD, but I know Harold wants to make this work, so I'm sure he can direct that. But the Rangers have already have a plan for the evening to be there and to assist as needed. So I think, Jim, if you can look at the areas that we want people out of, remembering that the Greenway trails themselves are open 24 hours for movement through. So people are trying to get from point A to point B. Greenway trails are open 24 hours. Really is being in those grassy areas where you have concerns with the wildlife and stuff like that. So I think working with your group and the Rangers, we can definitely try to figure out how best to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I think with ranger help and some strategic fencing that we'd be able to limit pretty well people infiltrating into the nature area. Not to say that's not going to happen, but compared to the three options that have been discussed, this would have the least impact.
Yeah. The west side of the nature area too. So you go west of that, and now that it's mown, no, I'm sorry, east. I'm sorry, I was the other west, that's east. Sorry. Going that way, you see that area, right, that rocky area right there, that whole thing, that's a viewing area right there. No, I'm talking about this area. I'm talking about, sorry, I can stand. Look, so past the cottonwood trees, this is gonna be chock full of people. And they're gonna come from the dispensary over there, and they're gonna, the dispensary and I always forget the name of that put in takeout that's here. They're gonna be here, this right here, it is now mown down to nothing, and it won't grow up that much this year. That's just gonna be a big viewing area of people unless this is cut off. That's wild turkey habitat, and plover habitat. So, I don't know.
Thank you, Aaron. So I just want to ask one more time, does anyone want to make a motion on the options outlined? Anyone with that?
I mean,
Does staff feel that we should?
I think it would be good to have
Yeah.
some type of, and if you
I'm sorry,
say
talk
the
in, people
fourth
here.
option might be don't do it here.
That's exactly where I was going. So if not, I would like to motion that we recommend to City Council neither of, that we don't use the Dickens Farms or Martin Street area at all for this event. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Sorry. Oh, okay. All right. All in
we have
favor.
some discussion before we
We
vote.
can open discussion. Okay, fair.
Okay, sorry, Nick, can you repeat what just happened?
I made a motion, Sam, to recommend that to City Council that we do not use the Dickens Farm area or Martin Street areas at all for this event.
And there was a second?
Aaron did second after a brief hesitation, but
Yeah, there's still
and then we're gonna have
discussion.
this discussion.
Yeah,
We
there's
want
still
this
discussion. I don't want to be 4th of July Scrooge.
And this is also, just put it out there, this is our recommendation to City Council. City Council will always, override us.
I just don't
Very,
see what's
very
going
well.
to change
Yeah.
next year. I don't see how, like, why we're doing something. We're going to be like, oh, we're just going to do it for this year because something's going to change. We're going to have some new area, someplace in our city that has this great fireworks venue.
I think that if it works here, it'll be back.
Oh, it's gonna be back forever.
Thank you. Any other?
I mean, I'm just wondering if, well, no, I don't have anything good.
I mean, if we were 1 year from opening up the sugar mill, that would be different. But we're not.
Is there any other discussion? Sam, did you want to open the discussion for that motion that's on the floor?
No, I'm good to vote.
Okay. All right. So all in favor of the motion to recommend to City Council not to use the Dickens Area Farm or Martin Street at all for this event, say aye. Yeah, raise your hand. You got 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? We got 2, and we abstain.
I'm abstaining. I just don't think I know enough
hard.
about I think it's
I
we have a traffic problem either way. And,
I mean, we're like split. I don't know if that actually is helpful.
That's okay. That's okay. So we don't have a majority then, do we? Right?
No, we don't have a majority.
We don't.
I mean, but you guys know how reserved we are about all of it. I guess that's important input for you guys for you folks to know is how reserved we are about this idea.
But the motion does not pass.
Right.
Okay. David?
I'm sorry, it moved quick over here, and I was really getting back to Sam's original question about if they wanted a staff, if we wanted you guys to vote. I heard Jeff say, yes, we did. Hearing these motions not pass, I do think it's important for staff to take back how important it was for this group not to have impacts to that. So that's what I was kind of hoping for. If you do, when I was trying to get back to Sam's question, if there's a way that we could thread that needle, that council made very clear that the least amount of impact in nature areas what this group was trying to get to. And that was, again, prior to stuff that just happened. And I just wanted to make sure I was trying to get back to Sam's question of, yeah, I do think having input from this group is important. And I think whatever that outcome is, I think we can share that with council too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to get to, and I couldn't think of a way of just saying, if they could, I just don't think they can have this kind of an event without impacts. I mean, they could have just the fireworks and, really protect the nature area. Maybe that is a workable option, but
Yeah.
something at this scale is just
All
an
right.
event.
So we are at 8:30. So this was a great conversation. I'm glad we were able to get through some of it. But I think we do need to move on. If not moving to an adjournment, but we did have one more new business topic on the agenda, which was discussing the board retreats. And of course we're all tired and probably brain dead by this point to discuss the board retreat. But I know this has been moving from last month's agenda to this month's agenda, so I hate to just continue to kick it down the road without any type of discussion on this, of maybe opening up just a little bit. So I think for the board retreat, there's a couple of decisions we need to make for this, starting with, would the board retreat replace a standing meeting or would be an additional meeting? Would be one part. And the second part would be what would we like to dive into? And so maybe if we'll just use tonight just to discuss options or brainstorm just a little bit, and we'll just cap this at maybe 5 or 10 minutes if we can, because we're already late as it is. Then we can come back and make a decision if later on if we're not able to come to final decision. So if that's okay with everybody, can we just open the discussion for, first of all, should this board retreat replace an existing standing meeting or be its own standalone discussion like we did prior year, or and I should say, what would be some ideas that we would like to consider for that board retreat? Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
So last year, just as reference, we did it on a Saturday morning.
Right.
I think it's kind of hard to replace a meeting, just.
Yep.
We only have, it kind of gets late fast and tired and.
I agree. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. So if we were to do one, we feel roughly that it would be its own standalone, similar to how we did last year. Okay.
If possible, I'd love to, could we meet at Button Rock, or could we meet in Callahan House, or I don't know, some way to create have the meeting be something relevant to, maybe at Union, I don't know, but.
Yes, I like that.
I don't know enough about the facilities, so maybe there isn't anywhere good, but.
Scott, as a raise your hand.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we want to, attach field trip with retreat or as two separate things, but I would love to, when we do the field trip ones, to put things in more human context. It's good to see things in Google, but sometimes the scale is a little off when you're in a room looking at the scale.
So if I'm hearing that correctly, we're saying that board retreat is nice, but actually if we're going to do anything, maybe 2 field trips. We're focused on the field trip and be on location.
Well, I think earlier we had said, being able to visit, projects that have completed or something like that would be, or projects that are coming up this year are good to keep in mind. It could be a hybrid. Just
okay, thank you. And any other thoughts on that topic? So in terms of topics then, for this board retreat, we'll be diving into, do you have any thoughts specifically on what we want to discuss?
I would throw out, besides the projects that are coming up, I think the CIP process is always something that's interesting to do, even though it could be off cycle if it's not for another few months.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to gear up some future prep to have a timing and education to know what to do about the CIP and getting involved and
deep dive in the CIP.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on topics?
Yeah, I would like us to take a deep dive in inclusion.
Right.
It just this can keeps getting kicked down the road, and it's frustrating that it just keeps getting kicked down the road. You have to set aside the time to do things if you really want to say, oh, we want to be inclusive. We don't know why we have certain certain folks of certain identities that don't feel welcome in our spaces or don't feel like they can use our. I'm sorry, I'm talking loud, not because I'm being passionate, it's just because I want to be loud for you. But if we want to include we want to be truly inclusive, we need to set aside time for it. We set aside a ton of time to hear about like what's going on at what park and all that stuff, but we haven't set aside time for that. So I did send out an email that was, I didn't realize that it was illegal, send out, sorry. But there is eco-inclusive is excellent, and one of the workshops is called collaborative community engagement, which would be a really excellent use of our time. I've had several Parker's trainings before, but that would be an excellent use of our time, is learning how we can engage folks that don't look or have identities like us, either or. And I would like
Thank
to
you,
do
Erin.
that.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for adding that. So I think we have CIP deep dive, CIP process deep dive, DE&I deep dive. I would add one which would be going into a master plan or reviewing a master plan and going really into that document and just tearing it apart and really dissecting it would be something that would be something we haven't done as a group before, and that would be something that I would be interested in as well. So we have 3 topics there. Just one more quick round. I guess we lost Sam. Is there any others on that list that we should add and consider? If not, okay. So Jeff, if it's okay, what I think we should do is send out a poll to the group offline for potential Saturday or Sundays dates for the board retreat. We can discuss at least a lot on dates of when we can do it and see who can join. And then of those 3 topics, we can discuss perhaps in next month's meeting which of those we want to move forward with.
And I actually heard 4, with the field trip being the other. Thing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Or
The new rec center is.
But we could do it.
I was trying to think about that. Like, how are we going to talk about?
Yeah, how do we talk about?
What are we going to do about our falling apart recreation facilities?
But we could, I think any of those, we could combine it. You can do all this stuff outdoors. You can do all this stuff in a pavilion, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want us to include in the poll priorities about what the 4 or 5 items too? Date and topic.
Would everyone be okay with weighing in on that? Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. Okay, great. Let's keep moving because we're already over time here. Anyone have any?
We have to vote to extend.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually do we? The bylaws doesn't say
No,
anything.
it's kind of an informal thing that the board has always done, though.
That's what I've noticed. Yeah, we've always, but it's not in the bylaws. I checked it last month too.
Right.
We can. Does anyone want a motion to extend the meeting? I know we're already 8 minutes over.
How much more are we going to do?
We're probably going to close out right after. Well, I don't want to speak too soon.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Up to 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Anyone want to second 15 minutes? Okay. All in favor? Sam will take that as a no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said he was out.
Yeah, it's not in the bylaws though. I did check. Okay. All right. Does anyone have this items in the packet that they want to raise? You have 15 minutes.
I have items, but I can just follow up. I mean, I don't think I don't want to go through. I kind of have a long list, so I'll just let you know.
Scott.
Yes, so I have a question that kind of feeds back to your comment about Thompson. Boston Avenue Bridge and Gallo both were way over budget when bids came back.
Well,
Are we concerned?
It was over budget, but the, we have to wait 90 days to send it out to bid again. So what we're doing, and you have to alter the scope so that it's not unfair for bidders that have already done it. So that is going to go out in April, and there are some strategies that will allow us to, we're gonna do some alternates within that bid. So we can then control like the what is included.
Okay. That's good. This is like a 2-for-1 answer then. So are we then concerned with like them putting out other projects, say Thompson Park?
Well, Nemo is a special
It's a much
project
bigger.
because it started in 2018, and so there's just a lot of things that have occurred with that project. with the other projects that we're doing, the 8 and 5s, which include the Clover, the Fox, and the Dry Creek Synthetic Turf, those are all on schedule. 2 of which, one is under construction, one is getting ready to start construction, and Fox is following. And so looking ahead, we're also looking at alternate delivery methods for some of our other projects, like the Roosevelt Park, looking at a design build delivery model. So then we can control that through the contractor, also due to the nature of the project. So that kind of helps with that, some of those overages, where they can help us put together, establish what the specific scope might be, and then work within our budget that we've established. So we're looking at all these different options.
Anything else? Paige, you positive?
I have a quick one. How
Okay.
was the public meeting for Jack Creek, for the sledding hill?
The public meeting, there were 6 people, and there was 12 staff?
Sounds like it, yeah.
It was a cold night though.
Yeah.
And it was like a weeknight as
Yeah.
usual. The Musco lighting rep was there with a model, so he could show what the light, you can kind of expect, and give examples of different types of lights, or where these systems are installed. And they had some questions about the programming and the hours, I believe, and there wasn't a whole lot that came out of it. As far as the sledding hill, no one there really came to talk about the sledding hill. So we did have Josh Sherman, who does oversee that project, there to answer any questions.
I saw the notifications in my son's Altona, like the newsletter.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, that's good.
Oh, he was to Altona Middle School.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we had the meeting.
Yeah. But just recently they had updates in the parent newsletter about what's happening with the project and who you can contact.
That's good.
Which I thought was a good idea.
Yeah, and the contractor, their trailers for both Clover Meadows and Dry Creek are in the Dry Creek parking lot of the park. So there is a bigger presence there because they're seeing job trailers and fencing and activities. So.
And it was a bad snow year, so nobody's super attached to the sledding hill.
Well, I think sledding might be over for the year, so.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Might be. But you might have just jinxed us.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm hoping
That's
so.
what
because
Yeah.
no one
Yeah.
said
Get your shovels on.
All right. Any other items from the packet? Last call. Okay. Items from staff. Nothing.
One quick, Kensington restroom repair will be completed next Thursday, the 21st. So it'll open with the Alder Parks whenever they're re-energized for this season.
Just in time for me to go to the bathroom. I was waiting until next Wednesday. Just holding it the whole time.
Doesn't drink a lot of water.
Yeah. Are there any items from the board you'd like to raise that was not visited? Scott.
I have one for David, about the transportation, mobility plan. There really wasn't anything that really touched back on the greenways and tying in greenways. It was really kind of concerning that the mobility plan is really engineering focused on streets, despite the fact that the cover image is of the greenway at Hover. And I thought the intent was to include the greenways as part of our transportation infrastructure at some point, but even as it closed, in terms of the public to be heard parts, there really wasn't a lot to be said in that
So
area.
I'm not sure what more I can do than agree with you. I showed up there just because we weren't even invited to that meeting. So I showed up because I figured that would be a piece we want to talk about. And then I do think having Jody Marsh's, Phil Greenwald's, chain of command and mine and Jeff's, I think one of the things we're really looking at, Stephanie's doing the same thing, is, looking at our greenways really as more than just recreation or better transportation, alternative transportation, ways to get people to green spaces. So I think we're going to continue to push that, but honestly, I would agree with you. I think it's something that's the reason I was there that night, and we will continue to keep pushing that because it is an important piece.
Okay, because
I don't know that.
no, that's thank you. It's reinforcing that. I mean, the consultant basically said that's not in their scope to talk about, and I was like, I think we've written the project wrong at the beginning. So, because we're still siloed, right? If we're not talking about greenways, then where the sidewalk touches the greenway, we might as well just pull out a 10-year-old plan that we already have and just go with that, because that's the failure of the other plans, is that we didn't tie the two systems together.
And again, just so you know, I think just trying to make that connection, Danielle and her team working closer with Phil Greenwald, Stephanie and her group working closer with engineering. I think we're trying to make sure the silos are at least connecting and talking.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other items from the board? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
We have a second. Second, quick second. Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
I oppose. I'm thinking about myself.
Lock up when you
It's not like asbestos mitigation going on in his house or something.
No,
Just wants to spend the night here.